begin this journey in such a specific and distinct area of research?
That's that's a very good way to describe it, to be honest. Yeah, it's specific and distinct. Well, to preface, I didn't think I would end up being somebody who would talk about clowns so much. I'm not really like a huge enthusiast exactly. To be honest, I never really gave something like a clown a second thought in my entire life. They've never been anything on my radar exactly. But there was this thing in 2016 called, the creepy clown sightings event where people were standing menacingly on street corners, scaring people, and the whole media was a flurry about pointing this out to everybody and saying, "Do you see the creepy clowns? They're coming for your kids," and a frenzy was kind of stirred up in that time period in 2016 in October. And people were genuinely scared that they were going to bump into a creepy clown, and people were obviously joining in on the hype, dressing up like clowns and kind of snowballing the effect a little bit. And by that point in my life, I'd been researching the occult and biblical history and conspiracy theories, for at least about maybe four years by that point, probably longer, about 5 or 6 years maybe. I have my own channel called Understanding Conspiracy, and I was kind of swimming in just researching everything to do with that. And when I saw the creepy clown sightings on TV, I instinctually knew that, well, the media doesn't show you anything unless they want you to see it. And usually, whatever you see on TV is a symbol of some kind for the initiated to take some information from. So I knew immediately then, okay, so the clown means something. It's a symbol for something. And things kind of came together in my mind, which sent me on the track of study for where I am today because of past experiences. You see, I kind of grew up in the psychedelic new age side of existence. I was heavily in that realm of consciousness exploration, shall we call it. And I was experimenting with all kinds of entheogens to try and explore these realms. I was heavily listening to people like Terence McKenna and every single thing he's ever done. And I was always looking for more, always trying to find new experiences and new realms and to connect with these other dimensions because I've just always just been an inquisitive mind. And this was, for the best part of being 16 to like 20, 22, 23 is what I was when I was doing all this stuff. And I was never like, I wouldn't call myself like, a new age hippie exactly. I was never into like chakra alignments or crystals or that type of thing personally. I was more focusing highly on the philosophical, spiritual aspects of consciousness. What is that exactly, and what does it mean to exist? In a way, I guess I was looking for God, if you could describe it as anything. So during those years of my life, I did see some things. I did understand that okay, so there is a spiritual realm, what people call the astral realm, or well, there's many names for that, the fractal matrix, whatever you want to call it. The warp to our woof of existence. And I always knew that existed, but when I came out of my university degree, so I have a degree in fine art. I was at a point in my life where I didn't really know where I was going. I didn't really have much direction. I had created this YouTube channel based on exploring conspiracy theories as very much directionless, looking for answers still, even after all my consciousness exploration stuff. And I decided to go down the Christian routes to try and explain the conspiracy of the world, and I found all my answers there. And I eventually gave myself over to God and started to follow that path. And that's when I started to do my real deep dive in 2014 onwards into biblical history. And I quit all the stuff I used to do then. I didn't explore consciousness using drugs anymore or anything like that. I went completely sober, and I focused solely on the word and trying to understand reality through that perspective. And I was getting answers, and I also began to understand the spirit realm a lot more and what it means to be involved in spiritual warfare. And as a result, I kind of well, how do I explain this? So I did a lot of studies into the Nephilim specifically, and this is what we're going to be talking about today. And this is where kind of I discovered more about the aesthetics of the Nephilim, because I was always seeing these images of like giants, everywhere that people are drawn to try and talk about the Nephilim. And they were always like really tall, tanned looking, huge pectoral muscles, Conan the Barbarian style, human looking things, with loincloths and clubs or something. And that just never sat right with me. As an artist, and as somebody who was studying the scriptures and the information I could find on what the Nephilim looked like and looking at experiences, having these experiences in the spirit realm with these drugs and, seeing these entities and these things, I knew they wouldn't have looked like humans. I just knew that was the case. What would they have looked like? So that was just something always in the back of my mind, always speculating, what would these things have looked like? Because they were supposed to be the hybrids between fallen watcher angels and humans, seraphim class angels specifically. And seraphim is its root words in Hebrew is a fiery flying serpent. So these things weren't exactly human looking, dragons more akin to mixing with a human. What would that look like? What would that kind of hybrid look like? And that had always been there. When I did decide, obviously, to give myself over to Christ and go down that route, I did start getting heavily demonically attacked as well, which is why the whole spiritual warfare aspect of things was very important to me. I started having sleep paralysis, visions of psychedelic demon jester monsters. I had a Hatman encounter where I thought I was being murdered in my dream by this guy, and I had one moment in waking life where my brain started to shut off and my body started to break down, and I had to call in the name of Jesus Christ to save me, and he did in an instant. And all of these things were proving to me, okay, so there's a spirit realm, and there are negative entities on the other side that clearly want us dead. And me kind of leaving behind that life of consciousness exploration seems to have triggered them in some way to come after me. And we'll get into today the nature of demons and why this is the case. But all of those experiences amalgamated with this moment in 2016 with the clown sightings. And it became clear to me there's something to do with clowns and demons. And the reason they're showing them on TV right now is they're saying something like the Nephilim are returning or something like that. People are going to start seeing things that look like clowns. So I kind of just rolled with that idea, and I looked out there into the world to see if anybody has ever connected the two words, Nephilim and clown. And no, not in an official capacity. No one's ever really looked into it like that. No one's ever considered the two to be related in any way. But there's something in my mind that I knew there's something here. There's something to do with demons, and there's something to do with clowns, and I know that demons are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. So there's a connection there in some way. And here I am, 8 years later, writing the book on the subject with the 43 episode series dedicated to it. And it turns out, yes, the Nephilim did look like clowns. So maybe we can get into that today, but that's basically a summary of what started my thought process into all of this. It was a long journey over many years, but it's an odd one. But here I am.
Yeah, that's crazy how you connected the two. I would have never connected that. So that's pretty amazing. And I've heard your interviews on other podcasts, and I think I seen one where you actually showed the the photos.
Oh, sorry, could you just repeat that? It just cut out when you started speaking.
I
I'm sorry about
know.
that.
The whole thing? I don't remember. I know it's been cutting out like that even on you a little bit. I hate, I don't understand why, but sometimes if there's bad weather, it seems like side.
There you go.
Oops, you're frozen.
We're back again. I've got you again. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I've never had a stream where something like this didn't go happen. So don't worry about it. I'm used to this. But we'll power through and we'll see what we can do. But you said you
Yeah.
saw something specific that really got your attention originally, and then it cut out.
Yeah, with listening to one of your podcasts or something I saw, and you had actual photos that
Yes.
you were showing. And boy, that really makes the connection when you're able to show, because when you're telling people, like there's gestures and they have stripes and things like that, you're I don't know. For me, it's hard for me to picture these things sometimes. And then when you showed it
Hmm.
and I saw it, I'm like, whoa, you're
Yeah.
right. You never put those things together.
It's
Visual is important.
it is a very visual theory. Yes, because most of
Yeah.
my work isn't really necessarily about clowns exactly, or
Right.
it's not really rooted in the things that have been written down about Nephilim exactly. It's a very visual thing because we have evidences for what they would have looked like from cultures who still have practices based on the religions they created when they were around. So you find a lot of cultures around the world who have ancestor spirit worship traditions. Well, they dress like what they call their ancient gods or ancestors. And that is actually a reflection of the Nephilim. That's what they're actually dressing like when you look into their histories. So you can look at the styles of dress all these cultures have, and you can infer the features the Nephilim would have had, and it's a common theme across the earth. It's white skin, they white up the face with chalk paint of some kind. They add polka dot patterns or multicolored fractal patterns to the skin with multicolored paint. They often red the nose up as well, which is an odd feature, or add polka dots to the body. And they wear a huge red feathered headdress of some kind, or made of straw perhaps, or they all have their own cultural specific way of doing it, their own artistic flair, but it's the common aesthetical themes that weave throughout them all that shows the Nephilim did have features you could equate to a modern clown. And again, as a lot of my work actually looked into, it turns out a modern clown is very much based after a specific demon called the Rakshasa from India. And even before that, all throughout medieval Europe, it was modelled after the wild man tradition, which was all through Europe as well. So they are quite literally historically documented. Clowns, as we know them in the West as performers on stage, are very literally modeled after demons. It's not even like a hidden thing if you look into it. And I've uncovered a lot more about the Rakshasa angle, more so than the already well understood Wildman angle for Harlequin. But what my work has uncovered is that it's very clear they've basically stolen the costume of a Rakshasa demon from Thailand temples and dressed the first clown like that in the 1800s. So yeah, very quite literally, clowns are modeled after demons. But if you want to go into the history of the Nephilim themselves, they had features which were clownish. So that's kind of the theory in a nutshell.
Yeah, I'd like to go down that rabbit hole.
Sure. Sure. Well, I've got a whole collection of images we can go through. Maybe because this is quite different from most of my other podcasts. I talk about this quite a lot, to be honest, and I've talked about the histories, and I give you a brief overview there as well. But maybe for fun, we could just today we'll go through a collection of photographs I've kind of compiled, and we can talk about the things as we go through them, and we can kind of discuss the what I'm showing exactly and what the visuals of what this theory is. Sure. So let me just find. I have a file called "Top Examples of Nephilim," which I sent to somebody in the past for them to use as background images. So maybe we can start with this one first, and then we'll just go through them, and I'll discuss a few things as we go along that I've discovered, and maybe then we can, if you want to ask any questions, stop me along the way. Please feel free. So I'll just very quickly get this ready, and I will just share the screen as well. So, right. There we go. And I'm just going to have to share the screen with these guys. So, share entire screen. Okay. So you can see my screen there now, can't you? I believe. Um,
Yeah, it's got like screens
yeah.
and screens and screens.
Yeah,
Did you see that?
that's
Okay.
about to disappear. There we go. So
Oh, okay.
you can see this compilation of images now, can't you? I believe. We'll just get that up there, and let me just check something on my end. Perfect. Right. So, ooh, wrong one. There we go. So what you're looking at here is actually a typical Rakshasa demon. This is an Indian creation. Rakshasas are a part of a pantheon of demonic negative entities in the Hindu religion. And you also have the counterpart cousins, you could call them asuras, which are kind of look the same, but supposedly more the positive aspect towards the negative. These were basically the bad guys of most of the mythologies of Hinduism, and quintessentially they were giant, cannibalistic, tyrannical kings and rulers. They were quintessential Nephilim creatures, basically, and you'll find all throughout the Indic regions where Hinduism had its influence, and they all have their own cultural specific stories dedicated to these entities called the Rakshasas. But as you can see here, the base of a Rakshasa was pale white skin, wild bulging eyes, a very large red-lipped smiling mouth, sharp jagged teeth. Now this is the base of any clown if you can just go off the words alone. And this is what Joseph Grimaldi and his costumes were initially based off of. So if we just start from the beginning though, and I'll scroll through some examples. So this is through China. And we have these generals. These are representing the spirits of the ancient generals, their ancestors again. Comes with the typical clown slit, the red mouth, the black and white skin with the multicolored patterns. You can see here as well. This is another pale-skinned demon from China. Very similar to the Rakshasas of India, the same buck-toothed, red-lipped motif with pale white skin and the tongue sticking out. That's another very common motif we see, and there's nothing quite as cheeky as a clown with his tongue sticking out, you know. So I think there's definitely a link there. This is the Wandjina of Australia. These are rain-bringing gods, who quintessentially are always depicted as looking like a pretty much a Western clown. Big red afro, pale white skin, large red eyes. It looks like a ruff around the neck and polka dot patterned with black pom-pom buttoned top. But those drops you see on the body there are actually supposed to represent raindrops. And these were ethereal entities that brought rain subsequently. And there were also kind of thunder gods as well. You'll find actually on any content you go to where Nephilim are kind of discussed as mystical creatures, they're always associated with thunder and lightning and rain. It's very common. It's almost though they can control the weather in many aspects. But this is quintessentially a clown by a Western standard, you know, and this is in an isolated Kimberley region of the outback of Australia, you know, and they describe things like the rainbow serpents building their land with their bodies, and then these are like an offspring version of the rainbow serpent that came and interacted with humans and taught humans how to build civilization. That just sounds like the Nephilim to me. Ancient rulers, ancestor spirits, builders of the kings and rulers of the antediluvian past, you know, that showed mankind things they shouldn't really be knowing. Well, the Wandjina are equated with a very similar story, and they inherited these features from the Serpentine fathers. So you have Quetzalcoatl in America, for example, who's the fiery feathered serpent of the Aztecs or the Mayans, you know, the Quiche Maya. But then, obviously, in Australia, thousands of miles away, you have the rainbow serpent instead. Then you go up to China, you know, and you've got the dragons and the dragon mythologies of China. I believe these were the fiery flying seraphim serpents who mixed themselves with humans and created the Nephilim. And this is what they would have looked like. So the Wandjina is a fun one because it pretty much is quintessentially a clown by any stretch of the imagination. I did a comparison image here somewhere. I've got at the bottom if I can find it. Did I not? Sorry, I didn't add it to this compilation. That's a shame. But I will get it up later, and I'll show you how it is quite literally. If you compare it to a modern Western clown, it's almost identical. So if we go back to the Rakshasas again, I showed earlier, this is one from Sri Lanka. Now, in Sri Lanka, they have their own odd traditions where they do these dances wearing these demon masks, but they call them rakshas rather than rakshasas. But it's a minor difference. If you look at these, obviously serpent iconography all the way through, fiery serpentine headdress there made of snakes, a lot like Medusa. And obviously the same Rakshasa grin with the buck teeth, bulging eyes, flared nostrils, and the tongue sticking out. They wear these masks during exorcist rituals where they're trying to get rid of bad spirits from the tribes or within people and heal them of sicknesses. You'll find many cultures have their own way of using these masks or these costumes to interact with the spirit realm. A lot of people have the superstition that you need to do this to cure illnesses, ward away bad weather, or in other cases, if it's not apotropaic, which is the fancy word for scaring spirits away, it's the other thing. It's they want to dress like a demon to be possessed by demons. They're trying to invite them in. So many of these cultures I'm discussing here are either doing one or the other. They're trying to scare the demon away, or they're trying to attract it. Now, they can't both be right. Only one of the methods has to actually be realistically the way forward. And I would say dressing like a demon only serves to bring them into you, not scare them away. And I think that's the true method, which most cultures practice more so than trying to scare them away. But you'll find throughout all forms of theatre, including the West, we have our Western clown. It's infiltrated even Eastern theatre. You have the face changers as well here, who are infamous for very quickly just whipping these masks off and having a brand new patterned face very quickly. And these are quite a famous one. But you can see the influence of the Nephilim has kind of infiltrated everything all throughout history, and the aesthetics are always the same. This is a ritual in Spain where they run around with a stick with a pig's bladder blown up on the end, and they wear these clown-looking masks with wide grins, and they go around wearing bells and basically cause chaos in the streets before a series of fasting before Lent. This is your typical carnival, which is a European tradition based in the wild man. And we'll get a lot into the wild man as we go on, but this is just one European example of something that spreads all the way across Europe. And again, these ancient traditions go back to Thracian Dionysian worship cults, and Dionysus was an infamous fallen angel god who created hybrid humans, a lot like Nephilim, half human, half goat people. And I think these are basically modern echoes of those ancient Thracian cult traditions where they would have a huge party, get absolutely smashed and drunk and have sex and do wild things. And then it's okay because they fast for 40 days afterwards, you know. But you'll find they always dress like basically quintessential Nephilim-esque demons. And it's no surprise when you understand the ancient cults that these things come from. They were demon veneration cults in their origins. This is the spirit festival of the Thaita Kon, which you'll find in Thailand. These people in obviously these rice paddy type areas, these farming areas, they have this tradition where they dress like ghosts every year to scare them away. It's based on a story to do with Buddha coming to their village once, and his presence ended up waking all the dead, and all the dead spirits were roaming around, and then he had to scare them away or battle them away, and they venerate this event every year. And the way they dress, well, it's quintessentially like a Joker jester demon with a huge, wide, toothy grin, big, bulging, ghostly eyes, huge horns on top of their heads, and multicolored fractal patterned clothing. This is just a minor example, but as we go through, when I go through more compilations of images, you'll see this gets wild in colour, but this is a very simple one. This again comes from a similar tradition within the Raksha demons of Sri Lanka. This is a specific demon, a specific one, which was said to bring sickness and illness to a specific region. I think it was the Yaka demon, I think they called it, something like that. And this is basically, you can't see it here, but it's actually holding little people in its hands that it eats. So it's actually a giant as well. But this creature here is holding on to the legs of people, tiny little humans in its hands. And it's known for basically... The story's an interesting one. The story is that the king and his wife mysteriously got pregnant at some point. And the king is like, this cannot be mine. Because I've not been around. You know what I mean? This is clearly not my child. And when the child was born, it was hideously monstrous and disfigured. So he kind of, got rid of it and threw it away. And it lived by feeding on the carcasses of dead animals or something like that. And it grew to be this giant monster. It basically sounds like it was a Nephilim hybrid offspring, which this female queen was impregnated with, you know. A typical Nephilim progeny story. I mean, if you go through all Greek mythology, it's all about the Greek gods raping the wives of kings and creating hybrid offspring. And it sounds like this is just Sri Lanka's version of the same story, you know. And the offspring was this thing. And in revenge for his father rejecting him, or his so-called father, it wasn't his real father, you know, he went and basically ate thousands of people and just destroyed these villages, and he had to be subdued by another god, another angel, but in this case they refer to as Buddha. It's very odd, a very odd story indeed, but this beast ravaged and killed a lot of people in its time, and this is how they remember it, with images like this: a huge big wide clown smile, you know, big bulging eyes, and serpentine patterned skin, because they would have inherited this from their parents, you know, serpent skin. just by the nature of their parents being fiery, flying serpents. And again, here it is another example. It's chewing on a leg there. Quite a hideous looking monster when you actually consider it, and it's got scaly skin there, as you can see as well. These are the general spirits, obviously ancestor spirits. Note the pom-poms on the head and the golden headdress. If it's not red hair, it's gold hair. It's one of the two the Nephilim-esque features seem to have. Here's a culture in Papua New Guinea. These are a cannibalistic culture within. I did a whole episode on these for the Nephilim Look Like Clowns series I have on my channel. But as you can see, red feathery headdress for wild hair and a red nose. This one is missing the whitened up skin, but as you'll see as I go on, it's very common to add that for most of the other members of the tribe. This one just decided against it for some reason. But again, these are clownish features. It's got a lot of the similar aesthetics to the Western clown. Going to South America, this is of the Selknam tribes. And now this tribe is relatively extinct now, very, very small in number. And these traditions don't really exist in large scale anymore because they were kind of genocided with the original, the colonizations of these regions. But this is what they used to dress like in order to channel spirits and venerate the ancestor spirits. And you notice odd fractaled patterns there with elongated skulls, pointed skull caps. As you can see here, this one with the black cone head has the 4 white pom-poms you often see on clown costumes going down as well. These are very much akin to fractaled matrix in the astral realm spirits. And again, what these people dress like is either one of two things. They're dressing like the demons as they look in the spirit realm, or they're dressing how the demons once looked when they were physical giants. It's one of the two. And I think this comes under spirit realm mimic. So these tribes are known for taking very potent psychedelic drugs during their shamanistic rituals to connect to the spirit realm. And they're clearly trying to mimic something they've seen on the other side here. And these are the DMT gestures people see when they take large doses of dimethyltryptamine. They look something like this, and they try to mimic them in their own rituals. So we can always, when it comes to scripture, I just want to preface, you can infer what the Nephilim looked like by finding very minuscule bits of information here and there in extra canonical books and a few passages in the Bible itself. But if you really want to know what they look like, you do have to go outside of scripture and look at these other cultures to get a good example of how they represent the disembodied spirits of spirits. And they wouldn't always call them demons. A lot of them venerate them. A lot of them consider them the creators of their civilization or the bringers of power and strength or something, and they want to make contracts with them, when they want to make deals with them, which is why they do this. But this is how we find out what they actually look like. We look around and pay attention to what's right in front of us. Here's another Rakshasa mask. I think this one is a representation of Rangda, the demon queen. I think this comes from the Balinese sect of the archipelagos of Indonesia. And this is from Bali specifically, and they wear these in the dramatizations of Barong. This is Barong, the dragon god, fighting against Rangda, the demon queen. So what you see here is a dragon. This is the seraphim angel. This is the fathers of the Nephilim. This is what they would have looked like. And this is a human-dragon hybrid. This is what the offspring would have looked like. And it's showing you here this is what the Nephilim would have looked like. These are the children of fallen angels mixed with humans. They looked like this monstrosity. And this is what the 18th century clowns are based on. So before we carry on, first of all, there's an example of the mask being worn of Rangda, the demon queen, in a play with the black and white checkered fractal pattern clothing, the pale white skin, the red lips, and the wild red hair. Not dissimilar from a modern Western clown in terms of aesthetical motifs. But just to really prove this point, if we go to see Joseph Grimaldi. Now, Joseph Grimaldi was the first quintessential modern clown. All modern clowns are based off this specific actor of the 1800s. He invented, or so-called, he invented the modern costume of a clown as we know it today. He was the first to dress like this. And this here is an image painted during the time to commemorate the new costume. And this is a very specifically chosen pose, because this is identical to the Rakshasas of Thailand temples here. So if you look at the costume worn by these guys, it can become very clear that that is identical to the costume Joseph Grimaldi is wearing here as well. It's no different. It's got the same polka dots, the same patterns, the same dress frills, similar face makeup as well. And these are the Rakshasa demons, or the Nephilim, being guardians of the temples, which were likely dedicated to them to begin with anyway, when you actually look into the histories of these things. And here's Joseph Grimaldi in a similar pose, but upside down, wearing a very similar dress. Now, prior to Joseph Grimaldi dressing like this, clowns in British theatre did not look like that. They used to look like this, which is a very boring Elizabethan servant rags. Nothing special about it. Pretty plain, pretty boring, pretty basic. But then suddenly, in the 1800s, it gets changed into this psychedelic serpent-looking demon thing. And the reason for this is because a son of a Freemason called Charles Dibdin had taken over the theatre at the time, and his father, Charles Dibdin Sr., was an infamous travelling Freemason who had connections to India. His brother was a serving member of the British Navy at the time and was actually colonizing India with the East India Company. And I do believe this Freemason brought Indian iconography back with him of the Rakshasa demons, and convinced his son, who had taken over the theatres of the time where Joseph Grimaldi was working, to dress them like this. This is basically inserting demon iconography into the most mainstream popular theatre entertainment industry of the time. It's an odd one indeed, and I go into heavy detail on my channel about the history about behind all this, the internal politics, and how this all happened. But make no mistake, this costume of a clown is based off of these right here. And you can even see the aesthetical similarities. It's uncanny where the costume comes from. But it's more specifically going back to the Bali region. So this is in Thailand, but in Bali they have the Kalasungsang version of the same demon, and the Kalasungsang is the upside down demon, and it is a Rakshasa. It's just their flavor of Rakshasa. And here it is doing its handstand, and again there's Joseph Grimaldi doing the same handstand with the same face and the same look. So that's what I meant when I earlier said clowns are quite literally modeled after demons. It's not even a joke. That's exactly where they come from in their costume and design, and that did become the industry standard from that day forward. So, going back to these images I'm showing you here, this is just these cultural specific ways of representing the demonic entities, and this is what the clown is modeled after. And here it's another example in India itself of a Rakshasa demon. This one's a lot more human looking, but still red lips, white skin, psychedelic fractal colored clothing, and a wild gold or red headdress. We got these as well. I think these are from Beijing. I think. These are the spirits of the dead. And Buddhism, it's quite common to see these faces above some of the gods of death and destruction. And these are wide, grinning, not human-looking skulls, are they? Humans don't have that many teeth. It's such a wide, grinning manner. These are the spirits of the Nephilim. Because the Nephilim would have had incredibly wide jaws. The Nephilim had serpentine fathers. Snakes can dislocate their jaws to eat their prey and have a very wide maw and smile. And so did the Nephilim. They had a very wide grin. If we go over to, let's say, even the Pacific Northwest and look at the totem poles there. This is... which ones are these again? Sorry, I get a lose track of the amount of cultures I'm looking at. But this is specifically in the Pacific Northwest, and they have these totem poles here. And even they use the same motifs when describing these odd animistic entities that they put on their totem poles. Look in the background there, you've got a hybrid human-looking thing on the bottom of that green and red one with the buck teeth, very similar to the Rakshasa. Then on top you have a human-eagle hybrid. There's the Rakshasa. They would say that's a beaver or something, but I don't think it really is. I don't know many beavers that actually look like this, That's a human-animal hybrid of some kind, very similar to the Rakshasas. Then you have an eagle-human hybrid at the top as well. But then you've got this thing with white skin, red nose, red lips, tongue kind of sticking out. This is the same creature. This is the Nephilim as well, immortalized in wood. Here's another example. In the background, you've got a similar sort of Rakshasa looking thing as well. Red nose, red lips, wide grin, sharp, angular buck teeth, human hybrid with something. Not quite an animal. But they always claim, these just represent animals, specific animals. And I'm not so sure. I'm really not so sure. I think even they may have forgotten why these things were actually carved in wood originally, and they've come up with stories since. But the similarities are uncanny to everything I've just been discussing from all these other cultures. In Africa, ancestor spirit worship is rife, but more often than not, they look something like this. Very psychedelic and fractaled in nature, with hair strands and straw, which they whip around at fast speeds to make them look as though they're just nothing but a blur and made of frequency and sound. They're trying to represent the spiritual realm version of Nephilim here. Because once the Nephilim looked physical, like this, let's say, once they died, they became disembodied and ethereal and more spiritual, and ended up looking something more akin to this. Now, this is what people see now in these other realms. So that's another representation of that. But you'll find, like I said, here's another mask from the North Americas representing demons. Here's the Oni demons of Japan in the Kabuki theater as well. Very similar face to the Rakshasa with the wide grin, the buck teeth, the wild red hair. Here's another one from Bali. Humans with unnaturally wide grins, buck teeth, and red lips. Multicolored black and white fractaled snakes all over the place to symbolize the hybrid nature of being half snake, half human. Here's the Selknam tribe images again from South America. Very psychedelic looking with these odd looking antennae up here as well, like a jester's cap. Even got the geishas. They black the teeth up, red the lips, and white the skin. And these are actually comedians. They're entertainers by nature, very clownish in action. But it's an emulation of something. This is considered a beauty standard. And you have to wonder where these beauty standards actually originate from. Well, the Nephilim were very tall and very powerful, and people would look up to them as gods. So they would also try to emulate them. And I believe most of the cultures we have passed down from every culture are echoes of when we used to venerate them as gods. Here's the Fighter Con once again, the spirit festival I mentioned earlier with the demon masks. These ones are a lot more elaborate than the slightly poorer ones you saw earlier, but now we have the inclusion of the psychedelic fractal patterned clothing akin to them in their etheric sense, or a representation of serpentine skin. Serpent patterned, multicolored, fractal patterned skin with a large, wide, toothy grin and elongated features. These are quintessential Nephilim-esque, Rakshasa-esque looking entities, and here's a close-up one of them as well. And then if we go to Greece in Europe, we have the Gorgon. The Gorgon, again, the same aesthetics, the same style teeth, the tongue sticking out. This is a new continent now, new culture, thousands of miles away, okay? With the same big, wide, red-lipped grin, pale white skin, odd patterns on the face that aren't naturally human. Here it is on a piece of older pottery. Huge head, huge red hair, big, wide, serpentine grin with the tongue sticking out, acting like a clown, looking like it's doing the na look there with its hands in the air, you know? Very, very irreverent creatures. But that's also a representation of a Gorgon. Here's another representation of a Gorgon with its tongue sticking out, its mouth really wide grinned, wild red hair, very pale skin, elongated features. Here's another example of a Gorgon, tongue sticking out. This is all Grecian representations of Medusa, specifically. Now, Medusa is always depicted as a serpent woman with serpents for hair. But if you go to the oldest potteries representing Medusa, she looks more human than serpents. She doesn't have snakes for hair. That's just a modern stylization that has no basis in reality. She had red hair, and she had pale white skin. And she was a hybrid between Typhon, which is a serpent sea god, and Echidna, who was a siren. Now, it's said in the Book of Enoch that the women who mated with the fallen angels became sirens. That's what it says specifically. So sirens are nothing more than human women who have become hybrids. So she, Medusa, who you see here, is the daughter of a serpent god, a seraphim angel, and a human woman, a siren. So this is what you get. You get something that looks like a smiling clown. And it's everywhere in every culture. Here's the Papua New Guinea tribe once more I mentioned earlier. You saw the old gentleman with the red nose and the red headdress here. Well, this is the same tribe I'm showing you now, and it's just one of the young boys from it. and he decided to white the skin up and add the red nose instead, a lot like a clown we have today. This is because they worship these spirits, they venerate them, they commune with them, they even eat people based like they used to. This is a cannibalistic tribe. Here's the Gorgon again, which I just showed you, with its tongue sticking out, but this time this is on a piece of pottery. This is on Athena's chest. Now, Athena was actually given the head of Medusa as a gift by Perseus after Medusa was slain and beheaded. And Medusa wore the head Athena wore the head of Medusa as a talisman for good luck and protection. And as a result, you find a lot of Greek armor and helmets and shields have this face on it for protection and good luck, because Athena wore the literal head of this beast around her neck as protection on an amulet on her chest. So this is what it looks like. It looks like a quintessential modern clown, and this is a simplified version of these things you're seeing here. But this is painted on very old pottery, thousands of years old, and this is their representations of these creatures. Going back to India, to ancestor spirit worship, these are from a much older cult, something called the Theym. And in the Theym, a member of the cult dresses in extremely psychedelic patterned clothing like this, and it's their job to channel the spirits for the tribe to ask it questions and ask it for favors and things like that. But while the person is channeling the entities, they have to eat anything that's given to them as a gift. So often they'll be given live chickens as a gift, and because the demon's in them, and they are being given a gift, the person channeling the demon has to bite the head off that chicken and eat it, because they've got to give the demon its blood type of thing. Here in Africa, we have a similar thing. White skin, red lips, red headdress of some kind. They're doing the same thing. They're trying to channel the ancestor spirits. They want to be possessed by them, so they dress like them. Here's another example of a Rakshasa from Indian iconography with the many arms, big wide toothy grin, fiery red hair, pale white skin. What else have we got? Here's back to the Americas again. Tongue sticking out, red nose, red lips, blue skin in this respect, with lizards all around the head. Here's another example of Barong from Balinese culture who fought against Rangda the demon queen. So this is a demon, a fallen angel, shall we say, who created the offspring. Here we in Papua New Guinea again, similar rituals, psychedelic fractal clothing, and clownish-like makeup on the face. Here's the mudmen, Asura mudmen of Papua New Guinea, a different tribe. They white the skin up, give themselves big wide grins with buck teeth, and it's the same thing. I can go to any culture anywhere and they'll have their own version of this with similar aesthetical features. Here's the fighter con once more. Look at this one here with this big wide, long elongated serpentine featured grin. Very scary stuff when you actually start looking at them. Here's a very old mask of the same things, the Rakshas of Sri Lanka. Same entity. This is what a human serpent hybrid would actually look like. An absolutely terrifying monster to behold. Here's a stylized version of Rangda, the demon queen I was mentioning earlier, with the pale white skin, though she wouldn't have looked quite as human. These masks I showed earlier are far closer to what she actually would have looked like, something like this. Very terrifying stuff indeed. And so we're coming to the end of this pretty much, but there's the Wanjinas I showed you earlier, next to a modern clown. The Wanjinas are painted on the inside of caves more often than not, and only a specifically chosen shaman of the tribe is allowed to go in there once a year and repaint them to keep them fresh. So these are ancients, these have been around forever, and these are representations of something that was knocking about in the ancient past, and it's quintessentially it's no different than a modern day representation of a clown, as you can see here. More examples of the tongue sticking out in other cultures. And here's another Rakshasa mask. And then if we go to Europe, I skipped over some of the European ones for the wild man tradition, but Europe has their own kind of version of this, and it looks something like this. This is Bulgaria, and they have something called the kukri. Now the kukri is based in, like I said, ancient Thracian tradition centered around the worship of Dionysus, who's a Greek god of theatre, debauchery, wine, sex, partying, drugs, all of those things, all the good stuff. And this is what they dressed like to represent not only Dionysus himself, but also the wild man giants. And the giants were not simply just hairy men with clubs. They were very colourful creatures, as you can see through these representations they've made of them. And they dressed like this to ward away evil spirits just before fasting. That's why they do this. That's why they say they do this. And they jangle their bells to scare away the evil spirits. But as you see from these other cultures, let's say the African cultures here, well, they're dressing like it. This witch doctor, for example, is dressing this way to be possessed by the spirit and channel it for power. While these guys are dressing this way to scare away the spirits in order to be free from demons. So who's correct? Who's got the right, who's doing the right thing here? Which one's actually getting the desired result? I think these guys are getting the desired results. I think these guys have been duped. They dress like the thing to channel the thing without realizing it. They're actually only helping feed demons during that party they have dressed this way, because they're channeling the demons unbeknownst to them. The only difference between a European practice of this culture, like the Curetos of Portugal here, for example, who do the exact same thing, complete opposite side of Europe, by the way, completely disconnected cultures, just happen to be connected to the same continent, thousands of miles apart, but they also have the same tradition of dressing like the psychedelic monsters, the serpent skin hairy monsters, the wild men as they call them, just like the Bulgarians do here. And they also believe they're scaring away evil spirits before a period of fasting, just like these Bulgarians do here with the pom-poms, the polka dots, party hats they're wearing here, the pale white skin, the red nose, the red lips. They're dressing like things and channeling them without realizing it, is my own personal take on the situation. Demons, you have to understand, Nephilim want bodies. They don't have bodies anymore, okay? They were killed, they were wiped out. Pre-flood, they were killed each other off as a punishment for the angels who created them. The angels had to watch their beloved ones murder each other as a punishment for creating them. And that's the Greek story of the Clash of the Titans, And for example, once they were all dead, they became disembodied entities, demons. But then they had children too, and those children of the Nephilim also mated with women, and you got hybrids going all the way down the bloodlines, all the way up until the flood. Then you got humans corrupting themselves just before the flood as well, as is described in the book of Jasher. And you would have got all these psychedelic creatures together that would have got absolutely decimated once the flood came. Once they all died, they became these psychedelic monsters which we see now in the fractal matrix, in the other realm, as disembodied spirits. And all these cultures do is dress like them now to scare them away, so-called. But these cultures who channel them, they want them in their body. That's the point. They're trying to get them in their body, okay? And they feed the demon once they're in there, because the demons don't have bodies anymore. They use your fingers, your eyes, your tongue, your nose, your skin to feel, taste, smell, see, and eat, and do all those things, They use your senses to experience things once more. That's what possession is truly about. These shamans willingly give their vessel over to the demon. In exchange, they get knowledge, power, the ability to heal, for example, or something, or the ability to see other places or travel through to other places and know what their enemy's doing, or typical witch doctor voodoo stuff, whatever it is. There's an exchange going on, but in exchange, they have to feed the demons stuff like nicotine, alcohol, sex, drugs, murder, whatever it is, Whatever the demon desires, the vessel gives it to them through their own body. Now, they know what they're doing. Do these guys know what they're doing? I don't think they do, because they believe they're scaring the demons away. But is it a coincidence that when they dress like this, they have a huge party of excess where they drink a lot and eat a lot and do a lot of horrible things? Probably not a coincidence. It's like Mardi Gras for the demons once a year, where they get to have a good time through all these idiots who don't know what they're actually doing. You know what I mean? It's kind of naive to think otherwise, and that's what a lot of my work basically is about. But there's a visual overview. But I have thousands of more images, showing this. Here's another one from another culture, a bit more of an example of the big wide grinned mask you saw earlier from I think they're from Bangkok. I think they were. But again, the undead spirits here, the hungering spirits, as they call them, and a lot of people leave out food at altars for them to feed the hungering spirits, who have unquenchable appetite, but no means to feed because they're undead, you know. And
That actually looks like Joker.
it does exactly, yeah. So coming to the modern Western version of clowns, they are quite literally a continuation of what a Freemason injected into culture in the 1800s here through then, and this became the industry standard. Now I've just shown you there that people dress like this to channel demons, okay. And what we've done in the West, we've occulted that. It's been hidden by secret societies. So you're not supposed to know that a clown is a representation of a demon. Because the clue is, if you can get as many people dressing this way as possible, you're opening up more channels for them to get into our world more readily. Okay, and they would rather that we didn't realize that what was going on. So one of my recent videos on my series is sorry, let me just find if I can maybe find it here quickly. I've got it up. No, it's not going to work. My channel here. Yes, if you go to my channel here and you go to playlists, and I've got my Nephilim Look Like Clowns playlist here, and like I said, there's a lot of videos here to get through, a lot of things you can go see. I've got Nephilim Clowns in 15 minutes summarized here, but my recent one was actually about the media industry here, and I'll just mute that. And it was showing how they're actually showing clowns everywhere right now in the media. And they have been pushing them hard on us for the past decade. And it's their attempt, in a way, to popularize the clown in the consciousness of the modern Western world. Because if you can get more people idolizing clowns and wanting to dress like clowns and thinking clowns are cool, then what they're getting people to do is dress in ancestor spirit worship summoning costumes without realizing it, you know. And just being ignorant of the spiritual law doesn't make you immune to the spiritual law, unfortunately. So you'll find, like I said, as we're showing through here, these are the ancestor spirit worship culture examples of these creatures and how they dress like them. And it can get pretty trippy. Now, these are a lot of the ones I just showed you earlier, which I already threw into this video as an example. There's a few extras thrown in there. The Kratos again. There's the Rakshasa temple demons. You got the African ancestors. I thought that was quite funny, literally eating a person. There's the Heyokas of the Americas, the cannibalistic tribes, and I've got here. This is another cannibalistic tribe, red hair, white skin, same thing. And you got the examples there, you know. There's the dragon god, there's the human hybrid offspring, and there's the clown, which is modelled after it. And it was all done by design. This is not an accident, you know. The clown was purposefully injected into Western media in the 1800s through the theatre by Freemasons. Okay, it was done specifically as a means to make people openly worship demons without realizing it, you know. And you can look at all clown symbolism throughout circuses, especially going into the 19th and 20th century. They were all Freemason run affairs. Freemasons own the industry today. All the Shriners still own the circuses now and have the biggest traveling circus, you know, in America. And they always have bro, as you can see here next to the old posters, the Cole Bros Circus. Brother, is not because they were just brothers, they were related to each other, okay? A brother is a member of the fraternity. That's what you call yourself. You are a brother if you are a Freemason, okay? And they were telling you then they were all brothers, and all 10 circuses, all run by Freemasons, got together and put on a huge show called King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. And it was a huge spectacular, you know. It traveled all across America, and it was talking about Solomon, the temple builder, who used the ring to control the demons to build the temple, you know. And then he had these strange exotic wives who brought him exotic beliefs, which brought his ultimate downfall, you know, and these type of things. And anyway, they were all Freemasons got together and did this show. Every costume was made by a company called the Anderson Arms Company, who made all the costumes for the Freemason lodges for their own little rituals, you know. And you realize that the circus was literally a copy of Freemasonic lodge rituals. First of all, a ringmaster of a circus. Let's get an image of it. Typical ringmaster here. with his top hats and his cane and his whip and his long trench coat. Well, that's actually a worshipful master Freemasons of a lodge. The worshipful master of a Freemason lodge is the only one allowed to wear a top hat. A lot of people don't know this, but they'll openly admit it. Only the leader of the lodge can wear a hat. Sometimes they wear a different shaped hat depending on their personality or their region to bring their own little flair to it, but more often than not, it is just a black top hat. The worshipful Grand Master. And he's the only one allowed to wear a hat. And so is the orchestrator of the ritual of the circus, the ringleader. And it turns out, if you look into the meaning of the hat and why is the leader the only one allowed to wear a hat? Because it represents the crown of Solomon. They believe that, no, as an honor to the king, nobody else would wear a hat in the past. And I don't think King Solomon personally was wearing top hats back in the day, but it's supposed to represent the crown of Solomon. So is it a surprise that they all got together and put on a huge show called King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba? You know, and here's the tale, here's the story. But if I put circus next to it, you'll find all the posters. Here we go, and here it is advertised. Move this across so people can see. A grand biblical spectacle, 10 truly good shows merged into one. King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, 10 Freemason-run circuses coming together to put on a huge show dedicated to their idol, which is the temple builder, which is Solomon, who controls demons with a magical ring. The Ring Master. That's what that's who he is, you know, that's what the ringleader is. He's the Lord of the Ring. He orchestrates the demons to perform the ritual with his magical power over the ring. While the ringleader orchestrates the clowns to create the circus performance. It's an analogy for Freemasonic ritual, through and through. It's all just similes and metaphor for the same thing. The clowns represent the demons, the ringmaster represents Solomon. It's the same thing, okay? And this is well documented. This isn't even like... people have written about this before, you know, and I wrote about it in my own book, how this is quite literally where you get circuses from. They are trying to copy Freemason rituals in an occult manner, and the public get involved with the ritual without realizing it. But initiates into the brotherhoods know exactly what they're looking at and what they're there for. And anyway, coming to the modern world, circuses are a bit old and dead. Now they have TV, and we have the internet, and they are pushing the circus and clown symbolism hard on people and have been for a while. A very long time, you know. Never mind the fact that they push entheogens on people where they interact with clown demons in the DMT realm. Never mind this. These are some examples of what people see, you know. But there's a modern one that was quite popular recently called The Amazing Digital Circus. But as I explain in the rest of this video, that is just a small part of a long pattern of pushing clowns on us through the media for a very, very long time. So let's see if I can't just speed this up so it'll fire through. But as you can see, in all forms of media, they have been pushing this on us for a very long time. Clown fashion right now is the height of pinnacle fashion, to dress like a clown. Even Elle, for example, I'm not even joking, all right? So let's look at a clown fashion 2023. And here it is. The runway trend lately is clowncore fashion trend of 2023, and this is the magazine Elle, a fashion magazine, which is explaining how, you know, clowncore fashion is in. This is it now. This is what's going to come into your outlet store soon enough, a watered down version of this. But when you know what I've just told you, dressing like the thing channels the thing. All they're doing is encouraging more of the general population to dress like a psychedelic clown monster in the hopes of being possessed by them without them realizing it, opening up more channels for the Nephilim to come to our realm. David Bowie is a famous example. I mean, the biggest secret of the music industry isn't to have talent. It's just to pale up your skin and red up the hair and get as psychedelic as you can with the clothing, and you will be chosen. You will be elevated, and you will be put in front of people, because they want to make an idol out of you. Because if you are an idol dressed that way, you will inspire more people to also dress that way therefore causing more channels. That's all it's ever been about. That's all it ever will be about. And now I've said it, you're going to see it everywhere. So I'll let this just run in the background, and I've talked for a while there, and I think I've given a lot of visuals to explain the gist of my theory. And do you have any questions? Is there anything you wanna bring up?
You you just blowing my mind away here. It's crazy. Oh my God. When you were studying and researching this, it must have blown your mind away
Yeah.
by finding these things. You must have been like, "Oh my God, why doesn't anyone see this?" That's crazy. Oh my God, that is so cool though that you've discovered this. So do you think that there's some kind of obviously agenda behind all this? You said they're trying to get us ready. They, as in the elites, is trying to get us ready for something coming because they have to kind of by I forget the law or the whatever that they have to do. They have to tell us these things. So if they tell us in this sort of way, they kind of um, they're allowed to do this and destroy the world because they told us.
Well, yeah, there's that idea of karmic retribution that they're off the hook because they told us and we didn't listen.
Off the hook.
Sure,
Yeah.
I've heard that before, but there's also the whole externalization of the hierarchy agenda at play here, where they are basically trying to slowly reveal themselves for what they truly are, slow enough for us to accept them and not fight back and accept it as okay or normal or even cool. So I do think this slow push to make clowns popular in the psyche of the general population and fun and innocent and something for the kids even is because we're going to start seeing more manifestations of creatures like this coming into the real world soon enough. Um, and if we're kind of already pre-programmed to be used to seeing stuff like that, we might not be so reactionary when the Nephilim do return, if that's where they're going with it, you know. But realistically, it's hard to say what the final agenda is here exactly. I do think fundamentally it's about getting more and more people to dress in costumes which are worn by ancestor spirit worship cults without realizing it, because it opens up channels for these entities to get to our world more readily. I think it's as simple as that. And obviously, you'll find in the media the demonic clown has become more popular over the fun childhood friendly clown. And I think it's because they are now hinting at the truth of the matter. The clowns literally are demons, and they're letting us know that now, you know. But a lot of people will never really make that connection, and a lot of people kind of they idolize clowns because of their irreverent nature and how they're running commentary on the absurdity of society and all this nonsense that people pontificate about and get all fancy and pretentious about, you know. So they think that the clown's a good thing, and we need clowns in order to not take life too seriously and to comment on, like I said, the ridiculousness of existence. But the truth is, dressing like this is no laughing matter. It's not a joke. It's actually very serious. I mean, just because this person here is doing it for a bit of fun for Halloween does not mean that these cultures I showed you earlier are not doing it in a very serious, reverent manner. You know, they are their gods. You know, they take it extremely seriously. Like these people, for example, let's find another one here. I've probably got a good one. For example, the Theym in India. This person is very serious. Okay, this is an extremely important ritual for a very serious god that they are both terrified of and venerate and worship and idolize. Okay, so when they dress like this, they are doing it because they want to be possessed in order to have communion with the gods. Okay, that's why they're doing this. But when, I don't know, Sophie over here dresses like a clown for Halloween for a bit of fun with her mates, she's not taking it that seriously. But the effect is still the same. She will end up channeling Nephilim demons just as much as that person I just showed you there is. There's no difference. Only one is ignorant of it, one is very well aware of what they're doing. Do you understand? So it's kind of, we have to be extremely careful about how we choose to dress. There's more to it than we think. We in the West have been numbed to these facts, these spiritual facts. We don't take it seriously enough. We don't even know this is even a possibility or a reality. We don't think there are consequences to dressing certain ways. In fact, most of the Western Hemisphere doesn't even believe in a spiritual realm or even understand that any of this could be possible. They haven't got a clue. And look, every year there's a ritual called Red Nose Day where they get the whole public to dress like a clown for the kids, right? You know what I mean? For charity. And this is how much of a joke it is to the Freemasonic control that they have over the Western Hemisphere and the world. We don't realize it. Yet you have Shriners who all have their own clown sect where they dress up like clowns and go to children who are dying in hospital and scare the crap out of them in the name of charity and love and harmony and whatever. But then just a step above Freemasonry and shrining, you have the highest order, which is the Royal Order of the Jesters. Freemasons know clowns are a very serious thing. Freemasons know full well that it's of the highest honor to be titled a jester, because they are working intimately with Nephilim demonic spirits. These secret societies are continuations of ancient serpent cults from the antediluvian past. They are the mystery wisdom schools just in the modern day. They commune with, venerate, and work with Nephilim, with demons. Secret societies, the men involved with these, are just physical foot soldiers for the spiritual bosses they have, which are the Nephilim. Then above the Nephilim, they answer to their fathers, the fallen angels, the watchers in rebellion against God. It's a spiritual hierarchy. It's a war. This is a military operation, And in order to commune openly with their bosses, the secret societies have turned their costume they wear to channel their gods into a joke. So we don't think it's anything. It's hidden in plain sight. We just think they're being a bit silly. But what they're actually doing is the exact same thing here as these ancestor spirit cultures are doing when they dress that way. Like the Hayoka does here when he's trying to channel the thunder gods of the Wakinian. He's dressing this way to very specifically channel and communicate with thunder gods, Nephilim creatures. And that's exactly what these people are doing here. It's the same thing, but it's hidden in plain sight. It's layered under comedy and nuance. So we're not supposed to realize it. It's occult. It's hidden in plain sight, And yeah, very, very sneaky. These guys they pulled the wool over our eyes for a long time, and I've basically blown the lid off it all for them. And that's
I
it.
know.
Yeah.
I know. You haven't gotten any threats, have you?
No. No, I
Thank
think
God.
I think they know people aren't going to take it seriously. I don't think I'm a threat to them, really. I don't think they're that worried. Um, and I think even a lot of only the highest levels would really be aware of this truth, I think. And I know they are aware of it. I know they are aware of this, and I'm not making it up. Quite simply because, for example, someone told me just a few months ago, and I've been doing this since 2016, making these connections. They told me that, oh, did you know that there's an episode of Supernatural where it was made in like 2002 or something like that. Let's see if I can get the actual episode up here. So they're talking here. Sam, one of the lead characters, is talking about a Rakshasa demon. It says a Rakshasa is a race of ancient Hindu creatures. They appear in human form and feed on human flesh. That's not true, first of all. That's it. That's a fictionalized. That's pure fiction. They never appear in human form. Rakshasas are not human in any way. They are Nephilim creatures. But obviously the media adds layers of fiction to the truth here. So take this with a pinch of salt what I'm saying, okay? But he's saying here, no, they feed on human flesh. They can make themselves invisible. They can't enter a home without being invited. So a bit of vampire mythos mixed in with them there. And then Dean says, they dress up like clowns and children invite them in. Why don't they just feed on the kids? And then Sam says, not enough meat on the bones, maybe? Apparently, Rakshasas live in squalor. They sleep on the bed of insects and have to feed a few times every 20 to 30 years. Slow metabolism, I guess. So in this episode of Season 2, which was aired years ago, I'm talking like over a decade ago, they were talking about a demon called a Rakshasa that dresses like a clown to get children to invite them into their homes. So they were telling you in media everything I've just said decades ago. The people who write these scripts know the truth, and they've implanted it here into a popular TV show years ago. Rakshasas and clowns are inexplicably linked. And then you realize, oh, wait a minute, the Rakshasas, the Nephilim feed every 20 to 30 years. Isn't that the exact same plot as Stephen King's It? If you look at It from Stephen King, um, Pennywise, he comes out every 27 years to feed, I believe. And the book's in two halves, when they were kids and when they were adults, because 27 years had passed once more. And it is an interdimensional killer hybrid monster creature from another dimension who manifests in our reality as a clown, or whatever people fear, because they also feed off of fear. And I do think there's something to be said for the fear element and demons feeding off of it. I think that's a large part of it, in a way. And I think they claim here he wants to put fear into the people because the blood gets infused with adrenochrome and it makes them taste better. I think that's what it says in It. And we know that's a real practice in real life. And we know, I'm sure you've heard of that before. Maybe we don't have to get into that today, but it's a pretty dark part of conspiracy world. But yeah, they've been putting this in media forever. They've been telling they've been telling us this for a while. There's literally a film. There's literally a film called Clown, which came out in 2014. Okay, and this is 2 years before I even started my research and came to any of this. And this film is literally about a guy who finds a costume in the attic of a clown. He needs one very quickly for his daughter's birthday. Okay. Anyway, he puts on the costume and he can't take it off. It's stuck on him. It starts fusing with him. Okay, he tries to rip the nose off and ends up causing this effect. You know what I mean? And he starts to transform into a reptilian creature monster thing that eats children. All right? And he has to eat 5 children to be free of the curse, it turns out. Because what he did was put on the skin of an ancient god called a cloyne, which is a reptilian hybrid creature. Okay, so that is literally the story I'm explaining here, that you dress like the thing to be possessed by the thing, right? And here he is dressing in serpent skin, and he ends up looking like a killer clown because he gets possessed by a flesh-eating monster. Right? It's there in this film from 2014, and I only discovered this after I got all my research done. So it's not like I've just watched too many films or something and I have a wild imagination. These are the facts, and they've been telling us in media, just like they always hint at things before they happen through predictive programming, for decades. Okay, for decades.
And shortly after, the clown people started showing up, right?
2 years later.
2016.
Yep, 2 years later, yeah. Absolutely.
That is creepy. There's a guy, I don't know his name, in Hollywood, supposedly. I seen him on a podcast somewhere, I can't remember where, but he tattooed his face like a clown. And he got really popular in Hollywood. He had literally like a red nose and red lips. And he was telling his story. He doesn't want to be part of this crazy Hollywood whatever that they're doing. And they make him so popular because he's like Bozo the Clown. And he's, you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, you're talking about Richard.
He's like this.
Richard the Barber.
Yeah. Yeah, the hair cutting guy. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, so he from what I gathered, he's a barber from California who got really into the Hollywood fame scene. He was well known in the circles from the story I've heard him tell, and he was invited to all the parties and stuff and kind of accepted instantly. But he says himself he wasn't really about all the stuff they were doing, and he wasn't really into it all, and he got to see some things other people otherwise wouldn't have seen simply because of the way he looks. Because they probably thought he was down to clown, he was one of them, like, because of the way he was dressing. But he comes out now, exposing all this stuff today, so-called, and he's now a born-again Christian. He's going around exorcising demons out of people, he says, But at the same time, I don't know, the guy's a young Christian, I think he's on fire for God, as he calls it, so I think he's doing his own thing. But I would highly advise him to look at my research into clowns and make his own decision about what that actually is, because he still heavily leans into it even now.
I mean, how do you take that off your face, though, right?
True,
I mean, it's like
true.
permanent.
Yeah.
It's always in him.
True. Well, God looks at the heart, not the flesh.
Mm,
Not the outside appearance. And I'm very much of the same. So I'm not going to judge anybody because they have a permanent scar on their face. That is the depiction of a demon. I can't disparage people like that, and I don't know where his heart truly lies. So I'm not going to say the guy's evil just because he looks this way. Again, who doesn't go through existence without a few scars? Who doesn't
that's
come through
crazy.
this life without in some way being influenced by this demonic world. We all leave with our own scars, but I think I've seen videos where he's still getting piercings, he's still doing the body modification stuff, even though he's a born again Christian. And we're not no nobody's perfect, at the end of the day. So I don't want to disparage the guy. I don't know him. I never talked to him. I did reach out to him when he first got onto YouTube because I knew he may find my work eventually. you know, and hear about it. And I wanted him to hear from me first that, listen, mate, if you want to talk, I'm free. I'm happy you've come to Christ, best of luck, basically. But he never responded,
Yeah.
and I don't know if he knows my work or not, or has even considered this angle. I would hope he does look into it. Because if I was him, as a born again Christian, I would be highly weary of continuing to lean into the clown aesthetic. I would.
Yeah.
And but again, what can he do otherwise? I understand it though, because it's kind of who is Richard the Barber if he's not the clown? He has an identity issue to deal with here. It's kind
Yep.
of it's not going to be easy to let go of a lifetime of identity. That is
Yeah.
revolving around something he's so heavily invested into. So fair enough, and
Yeah.
who am I to say otherwise? But yes, I have heard of him. To answer your question, um,
Really put him on a pedestal, basically.
yeah, yeah, and even now,
I think we froze.
yeah, I got the gist of what you were saying at the end there, but even now he's still kind of put on a pedestal in a way, which is odd,
Mm,
and he's still encouraged and
it's
promoted
crazy.
through the media.
I love
Yeah.
what you shown me today. That's amazing. I don't want to take up any of your time because I know you're so busy. But oh my God, thank you so much. I hope we can talk again.
No, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate. I know I rambled on a little bit there.
No, I love it. No, people want to hear you and what you have to say. Are you kidding? Thank you. No, and you have a book out, right?
It's about to be published in a couple of
Oh, it's
months.
about to.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
it's going to be two halves. It's volume one and two. Volume one really lays out the history of the clown costume and where we get it from. The history of the Nephilim, biblical, alternative biblical history from a contrarian viewpoint, which is where I come from. I'm a Christian contrarian. A lot of what I say is not really church Christianity. They wouldn't talk about these things. But I try and explain the best I can the viewpoints from a conspiratorial perspective and a contrarian Christian perspective of the history of the Nephilim and demons in the book. And then the second half of this book is about the costume of a clown, the history of the Freemason connection and the secret society connection, shamanism, DMT jesters as well. So that lays the foundation for the spiritual aspect of all of this and the physical costume. Volume 2, which will be published in about a year's time, that is more into the ancestor spirit worship cult aspect of all of this. Did you actually get any of that then? Or did it cut out?
it did cut out a
Okay,
little bit.
okay.
Yeah.
So volume two, once obviously this is volume one's been published in a couple of months. But volume two will take about a year to write, and it's going to be a combined volumes in the end. One and two will be one book, but for now I'm just splitting it into two. But the second one will be about all the costumes worn by the ancestor spirit worship cultures through every continent, and then the second half of volume two is about all the modern stuff, the media, the film, the music industry, and all that kind of stuff as well. So two volumes, two very distinct stories explaining the clown stuff, but once it's finished, it's going to be about a 500-page doorstop about this thick from what I'm going for. But yeah,
Wow. And where can we get your book?
it'll be published on Amazon once it's ready. I do have a GoFundMe currently activated for pre-orders, but I think I've capped out now about 80 pre-orders already, so I'm going to stop there. But if you want to support the book, you can go to the GoFundMe. Any support will get you a special thank you in the book. Unless you want to be anonymous, you can say you want to be anonymous as well. So it will get your name in the book if you're interested. You can go and support me there at GoFundMe. Just type in Nephilim Clown book GoFundMe, and it will come up in any Google search. Yeah.
That's great. Any other things that you want to maybe close out with or say anything to anyone?
Sure. though I'm talking about some pretty scary concepts here, ultimately these things are a defeated enemy. Okay, and we do have authority over them in the name and the power of Jesus Christ. These things flee in his name. So there's nothing to fear here. All I'm showing you is how the enemy works. I'm giving you some hints here to what to actually look for. In terms of a know your enemy situation, it's good to know what they actually look like. So at least you know what to look out for. So wherever you see the clown manifest in your waking life, what you're seeing there is the spirit realm bleeding into our realm through the people who are being influenced by them. So a very popular one right now, which is currently in the media, maybe we can close off this quite interesting topic, is demon face syndrome. And people have started to see humans with very wide smiles, warped faces, big bulging eyes. I'll very quickly just share the screen here so you can see a screenshot of what I'm talking about. I have one on my desktop ready to go, so it's very quick. But if I show you here on my desktop, people have started to see faces like this, and it's become a syndrome now. It's now scientifically a real issue, mental illness people get, where when they look at somebody, they see that image on the right instead. Okay, and coincidentally, it looks like a clown, doesn't it? You know, and I think what's happening here is now people are starting to see through the veil a lot more, and people are starting to perceive the demons within humans. So I'm not saying this person is actually a demon, but what we can see now is the demon that's using them to feed off them, to parasitically use their senses for its own pleasure. And we're going to be, I think, as time goes on, we may actually start seeing more people with this ability and more people expressing that they're seeing these things. Who knows? Maybe we'll all end up seeing this somehow, you know, because of some weird event or something. Who knows? But now they've officially called it a syndrome, and if you speak out about it, you'll be considered mentally ill with a specific syndrome and probably put on medication. Okay, this apparently this illness never existed until 2024 anyway. So, but just closing there, you know, the media's still pushing it. And yes, they do still look like clowns. But no fear. If you do encounter anything like this, call on Jesus and you'll be saved. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Paul. I enjoyed your presentation that you showed us today. It was amazing, very convincing. It's been really, truly a fascinating conversation, and I know the listeners will walk away with plenty to think about.
I hope so. Thanks for having me, Maya. I really appreciate it. It's been great talking to you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to have you come back.
Sure thing. Yeah, when the book's published, I'll bring me back on. I'll do a reading for you guys or something.
Thank you.
Excellent. No problem. Bye now.
Okay. Bye bye.